Hi everyone, my name is Elvi. I'm a University of Oxford Biochemistry graduate and experienced private tutor. In today's video, I'm going to be explaining step by step how to create a perfect Oxford University biochemistry personal statement. I'm going to be analysing how to organise your personal statement effectively for biochemistry applications. In particular, I believe there are 6 essential features that each personal statement should have, and I will give specific examples of how to apply these using the personal statement that I used as part of my successful application to Oxford. Before we go into the details of each of these 6 essential aspects of a personal statement, let's quickly run through what I believe them to be. Number 1. An introduction paragraph that sets the theme of your personal statement and your key topics of interest. Number 2. Specific examples of research or knowledge that interested you and inspired you. 3. Your specific subject extracurriculars. 4. Non-subject specific extracurriculars. 5. Future subject aspirations. And finally, number 6, a conclusion paragraph. Why biochemistry is so great and why you want to study it. Let's look at each of these a bit more closely.
Personal statement feature number 1, the introduction paragraph. This paragraph should set the theme that runs throughout your personal statement, indicating your specific interest in biochemistry. Why is this important? Oxford degrees are extremely broad, and biochemistry is no exception. You need to quickly identify the topic or topics that you're most passionate about. Doing so will give you 2 key advantages. 1. It shows to the admissions tutors that you've thought carefully about the subject and understand your motivations for studying it. 2. Should you get invited to interview, having a strong theme in your personal statement will ensure that you're at least asked a few questions about your areas of interest, giving you more power and control over the interview compared to a personal statement where your interest comes across as vague. Let's take a look at an example introduction from my own personal statement.
Upon gaining my present understanding of DNA, I have since been fascinated by the chemistry that governs life, ultimately making living things what and how they are. Siding more towards nature over nurture, I am fascinated about how genetics determines physical stature, health, and even behavior. So, from a short paragraph like this, it's very clear to see that I'm someone who's extremely passionate about genetics, okay? And I link this to my subject knowledge. So I begin by saying that, I've gained some understanding through A-level biology about the structure of DNA. And then I sort of expand on that. I talk about how my sort of main motivation for wanting to study biochemistry is kind of understanding the genetic basis of how life works. It's a really fundamental question. And so to the interviewer and to, well, first of all, the admissions tutor who is reviewing the application, they will know that I'm someone who is really, really passionate about genetics, okay? In a introductory paragraph like this, what you don't want to do is sort of do kind of generic or almost cliche, even cringy introductions. So sort of like, when I was 5, we did this watercress practical in primary school, and this inspired me. But this is silly, right? You want to keep it honest, convincing, and thoughtful. Here it's very clear that I'm someone that is passionate about genetics, and I've talked about ideas such as nature versus nurture, and by the last sentence, I'm fascinated about how genetics determines physical stature, health, and even behavior. I'm sort of implying that I understand the relationship between genotype and phenotype, okay? So it's a very good introduction paragraph. It's simple, but it's very good because it sets the tone for what's to come. Now that we've looked at the introduction, let's move on to feature number 2, the specific examples of research or knowledge that you've engaged with and that you find particularly interesting and inspiring. Really, the purpose of this section is to give the admissions tutors a flavor of your knowledge, a flavor of your level of engagement with the subject, and really to sort of pique their interest to want to interview them. Here, you do not need to overload them with every single detail about every single molecular process that you've read about. Instead, you want to give an indication of specific examples of research knowledge that you've engaged with, that you've thought these are interesting. And not only that, but you also want to explain sort of what impact they may have on not only biochemistry, but potentially also society at large. So with that in mind, let's look at the example paragraph for this that I developed. So I mentioned CRISPR-Cas9, and I explain it as a gene editing technology, emphasizing the fact that it's made it much cheaper and simpler compared to previous molecular technologies. I then sort of went on to expand that by using a specific example of research that was done around that time. And so the fact that I name drop the University of California and give details, for example, in this case, they had developed a genetically modified human pig chimeric embryo. That allows the interviewer to then, the admissions tutor, to sort of look that up and be potentially armed with some knowledge to ask you questions. Again, like what I was saying in the introduction paragraph, the whole point of the personal statement is to show your interest, your specific interest in the subject, but also to kind of frame the conversation for interview in a direction that you're going to be most interested in and strongest on. And so after introducing that research that I found interesting, I comment on why I think it's important. So it's not good enough just to say, I've read about this research. They want to see your opinion, your interpretation of how important this is. So, I commented on the fact that breakthroughs in this area would, be revolutionary because it means we could grow human organs without, needing donors, right? And this would revolutionize medicine. At the end of the paragraph, I sort of, what I call motivate the subject, talk it up. I believe biochemistry is an expanding field in which there is yet much to discover, hence my strong appeal to study the subject. So let's recap that. I introduce a piece of research that I found interesting. I give specific details about it. I comment on why I think it's important and how it could change biochemistry or medicine or related fields, even society. And then I sort of reiterate why I think biochemistry is great and why I want to study it.
So, personal statement feature 3. This is the paragraph where you talk about your engagement with the subject specifically, i.e. your subject extra or supercurriculars. Okay? In comparison with the previous paragraph where you talk about things that you've read about or that you find inspiring or motivating, this is where you talk about things that you've actively done yourself. Okay, this can be very varied. It can take the form of talking about an EPQ that you've done. It can take the form of talks you've attended. It can take the form of lab days that you've participated in. It can take the form of biology Olympiads, this kind of thing. You really want to talk about the active contributions, the active things that you've done related to your subject. Let's take a look at an example paragraph about how to talk about essentially your successes, your achievements, your engagement with the subject.
Let's break down in a little bit more detail the paragraph that I constructed for my personal statement here. So, straight away, I have a clear, strong introductory sentence. This summer, I spent a week with the Wellcome Trust for Human Genetics. Why did I have that right at the start of the paragraph? Well, the Wellcome Trust for Human Genetics is a very prestigious and well-known organization. It will be known to the admissions tutors. So if you have an achievement like that, or any kind of association with an organization like that through like a lab day or a summer school, make sure you get that right at the top, particularly if it's something that's going to be well known to researchers in the field. Okay. But then you want to talk about what you learned from it. So again, I link this back immediately to my theme of interest, right? Genetics. So I talk about in the first paragraph how, I'm very interested about genetics. I side towards nature over nurture. I'm fascinated about the way life is and the genetic basis. And then I keep reinforcing this idea through my extracurricular engagements, okay? I then give some specific details about what I've done, what I did. So, PCR, gel electrophoresis, and then I further link that to sort of the skills I gained from that. So, laboratory skills and helping me to understand that, science is a practical subject, okay? So, with every statement that I have in here, it serves a purpose. I talk about the skills I've gained, and also showing that I understand I'm coming here to do a practical subject. I also talk again about the second thing that I took part in. So an experimental lab day. And again, this is consistent with my theme of genetics. So I talk about the lab day, which I took part in at Warwick University, investigating the gene induction in E. coli. And then I link this back to my A-level studies, where I talk about transcription and the lac operon model. Essentially, what you want to do is you want to give constantly, you want to be dropping bits of knowledge into your personal statement without, overloading the admissions tutor with details. That's what the interview is for, the detailed intellectual academic discussion. This is about giving a flavor of what you're interested in and what potential you may have for the subject. And so with regards to the potential for your subject, you always want to be dropping bits of information to show that you are a good candidate related to your experiences. So, for example, towards the end of the paragraph, I talk about the 3-day chemistry summer school that I did. And the main emphasis that I give to that experience is the fact that I gave a presentation to communicate scientific knowledge in a formal manner. Why is this important? Well, towards the end of your degree, you're going to have to give a presentation to the research group that you're working with as part of your dissertation. Thinking even more long-term, as a scientist, you may need to go to conferences and present your work, okay? It plants a seed in the mind of the admissions tutor that you're someone that is thinking about scientific skills if you drop information like that, okay? So this paragraph and the previous paragraph, should really be connected in terms of theme. That's why I really emphasize the idea of having a strong theme right at the start of your personal statement. And in my case, this was genetics. In your case, it could be protein structure, it could be metabolism, diabetes, this kind of thing. Feature number 4. This is your non-subject specific extracurriculars. Now, for applications to Oxford and Cambridge, this should definitely not be the focus of your personal statement. It shouldn't take up too much space. That said, you're obviously going to be applying to universities other than Oxford or Cambridge as part of your 5 choices for your UCAS applications. And non-Oxbridge universities do value this aspect. Nonetheless, you can always find a way to try and make this paragraph, this section of your personal statement, still closely related to science, or even better, if it can be subject specific to an extent, that will, reinforce this idea that you're very dedicated, very passionate about your subject. So let's take a look at what an example paragraph of this nature could look like. As I was saying, with this type of paragraph for an Oxford application, you do still want to keep it kind of related to the subject. What I mean by non-subject specific is you don't want to be talking in detail about like lab days that you may have done, or your EPQ, or an interesting article you read. You've talked about that previously. This is more general. This is more about you and your sort of general skills and experiences. So, but you can still make that related to, biochemistry, right? So, I immediately went in with saying I'm a chemistry subject prefect. So that's important. Why? Because it also shows kind of leadership and initiative, right? So, I talk about how this involves sort of dedicating my lunchtime to support lower years, okay? I then continue to talk about another interest of mine, which at the time was journalism. But again, I link this to the subject, biochemistry. So I talk about how I contributed a biology-themed article. And then I say how, it was my article about advances in gene therapy, and also talking about ethical issues that was made a key feature. And not only that, I then use that as an opportunity to sort of talk up my ability to communicate scientific knowledge, okay? Following that, I've sort of got a more general skills sort of content here, where I talk about NCS, which is sort of like a community engagement program. And then again, I do link that to the kind of skills that I would learn from that. So the key thing is, with your personal statement, is you want to justify everything you include. In the second paragraph, we talked about pieces of research that have caught your interest. Okay, that's great. You can sort of name drop these research or whatever it may be. But the important thing is to comment on why you think it's important. Okay. Similarly, for the previous paragraph to this one, we talk about your active engagement with the subject. Not only is it what you did, but what you learned from it. And similarly here, you basically want to use all your non-subject extracurriculars as an opportunity to talk about sort of the positive aspects of you as a person, your skills, and if you can, relate it to why they may help you in this particular degree.
So, we're coming to the end of our personal statement. Up to this point, we've really been talking in the past tense, i.e., how we became interested in biochemistry and what activities, research, reading we've done to further that interest. What I recommend is that all personal statements end with a forward-looking statement and a conclusion. Okay? Not all advice will tell you this, and I think it's a big mistake to admit a conclusion. Okay? It is definitely not a waste of words. Okay? So what do I mean by forward-looking statement and conclusion? In terms of a forward-looking statement, what I mean is you want to give an indication of how studying biochemistry could help you in your academic or professional goals in the future. By conclusion, I mean a summary of your interest in the subject, again linking back to your theme, if possible, and really why you think the subject is important for society. Let's take a look at an example of how you can convincingly end your personal statement and why ending your personal statement in this way is important and extremely effective.
Future-looking statement. As you can see, this is the shortest paragraph of the lot so far. Why? Well, because it's the future, it's uncertain, it's unknown. But what the point of this paragraph is to give an indication of what you could do with this degree. Why is this important? You know, many people apply to Oxford just because of the big name and the big prestige that comes with studying at Oxford. What the admissions tutors want to see is that you do have a specific plan, or at least you've thought about why you want to study biochemistry at Oxford, okay? And, you know, you want to give an indication of what could interest you. This shows that you're thinking deeply about the subject. This is a key theme. They are assessing your critical thinking, not just, well, I chose biochemistry because I like biology and I like chemistry. No, you want to give a more critical, more developed answer. So, you know, I suggest some reasonable things that at the time I thought I could do with this degree. You know, for example, I talk about patent law. I talk about, you know, wanting to work in research for a biotech company or beginning my own. Hint, I didn't actually start my biotech company. Okay. The point of this is just to show that you're thinking, big picture thinking, you know, eventually you're going to stop doing this degree, right? You're going to finish your 4 years. What next? Do you want to be a researcher? Do you want to go into teaching? Do you want to work in industry? Okay. Again, it just shows that you're thinking big picture and long term, and that you're not just here because Oxford's a lovely big name and it will look good on your CV, or just because everyone told you Oxford's prestigious. The conclusion paragraph, okay? The key thing that you want to do with this paragraph is bring together everything that you've said about why you're interested in biochemistry, but more importantly than that, you want to sort of why you think biochemistry is so important in the wider world. Why is this important? Remember, the people that are reading your personal statement are the admissions tutors. Once upon a time, they were, you know, aspiring biochemists as well. When they read something like this, something that talks up how great biochemistry is, how important it is, they're going to feel inspired. So you kind of want to flatter them. You want to flatter the whole academic discipline, okay? So my first statement in this paragraph, I believe biochemists will play an important role in the future of our planet, okay? And then I contextualize that. You know, I talk about global problems and I link that to how biochemistry can help. So rising populations, well, biochemists, genetic modifications of crops. Again, this links back to my theme, right? With genetics, okay? You know, rising and aging populations makes healthcare a challenge. Again, this links back to what I said and in the second paragraph where I talked about the human pig chimeric embryo and revolutionizing medicine by eliminating the need for donors, okay? And at the end, give a sort of very uplifting statement. And I also say, well, I want to be a part of this. You know, don't go overboard here. Don't say something like, I will cure cancer, because first of all, what you need to understand is that modern science is a collaborative, interdisciplinary, global effort, right? If you say something like, it is my sole mission to find a cure for cancer, that's basically personal statement in the bin, as far as I'm concerned. You want to put things into context and have some sort of modesty. So clearly there is a lot of work to be done, and I would like to be involved in these important and exciting developments. Okay, it's very nice. It shows that you want to contribute, but you understand that it's bigger than you and that there's so much work to be done. And the purpose of this paragraph, like I said, is to summarize why you think the subject is important and why you want to be a part of it.
So there we have it, the 6 key features that a biochemistry personal statement should have, broken down step by step in detail with examples. If you found this video to be useful to you, please do give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. It really would help. To emphasize some key ideas from the video, your personal statement should have a consistent theme throughout, indicating your specific topics of interest within your subject. You shouldn't overload the personal statement with detailed mechanistic information, but rather you want to give a flavor of the knowledge you've acquired, this experience that you've acquired, and why you think this is important. The personal statement serves as an invitation to interview. You want to whet the interviewer's appetite for discussing with you in more detail. Finally, you want to make sure that you have a conclusion statement. So many people omit this in their personal statement. I think it's a big mistake. The conclusion statement should indicate why you think your subject, in this case biochemistry, is so important and why you want to study it. Why studying biochemistry can really contribute to solving the world's problems. Okay? As you can see, a lot of these general ideas and themes are transferable across subjects. So if you know someone who is applying to Oxford but not necessarily applying to biochemistry, please also do consider sharing this video with them. Okay? As well as that, please do check out my previous video on the Oxford Biochemistry interview. If you feel like you need more support with your Oxford application, please do get in touch with me. I offer Oxford admissions tutoring through my website, ElvisOxfordCoach.com, where in addition to one-to-one personal statement and interview preparation, I also offer a number of free resources such as blogs and examples of previous personal statements and university level work to help you with your Oxford application process. I'm also active on LinkedIn and TikTok, and all that information on how to contact me is available below in the description. I will be posting a lot more on this channel in the coming months, so please do stay tuned for more great Oxford application content, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.